Okay, so you want to own a portable toilet company. You buy 100 plastic toilets. You place them beside construction sites, weddings, festivals, and road projects. The customer pays every 4 weeks. The same plastic box can be rented again and again for years. And because the box has almost no electronics, no engine, and very few moving parts, the business appears almost embarrassingly simple. Buy the toilet once, collect rent forever. Except the toilet is not the business. The expensive part arrives every week. A truck leaves your yard. A driver reaches the site. The holding tank is pumped. The interior is cleaned. The toilet is recharged and restocked. The waste is transported to a facility that is allowed to receive it. The service is recorded. Then the truck drives to the next unit, and the next, and the next. If those toilets are close together, one driver can service a large route before the shift ends. If they are spread across 3 counties, the truck spends most of the day moving instead of producing service. One toilet can generate revenue and still lose money every week. 100 toilets can make you busy and still fail to pay the owner. That is why one portable sanitation operator, explaining his own 2026 startup budget, treats approximately 100 units as the threshold that can create a meaningfully full route. In his model, fewer units may struggle to cover the company's monthly costs and provide owner income. That is not a national law. It is not an industry guarantee. It is one operator's practical claim. So, in this episode, we are going to test it. We will build a 100-unit company in southern Wisconsin. We will mix used construction toilets with cleaner new event inventory, including accessible units. We will add hand-washing stations so the fleet can serve real public events instead of pretending one generic plastic box fits every order. We will buy one used flatbed truck and install a slide-in vacuum tank instead of buying a brand new 6-figure service truck. We will budget 6 months of lean fixed overhead while the owner drives the first route and delays a full market salary. Then we will ask whether 100 toilets actually create a business or merely create 100 recurring obligations. Because the plastic box may be the object the customer sees, the truck is the operating system, the route is the product, and the real business begins after the toilet has already been rented. Before buying 100 toilets, you need to decide which company you are actually starting. The first is the small rental fleet with outsourced service. You buy perhaps 10 or 20 units. You deliver them with a trailer or suitable vehicle. Then you pay an established sanitation operator to pump and clean them. This lowers the initial capital requirement. You can test local demand without buying a vacuum truck. But you also surrender control over the part of the service the customer notices most. If the subcontractor misses Tuesday's route, your logo remains on the dirty toilet. If an event unit is not cleaned before guests arrive, the customer calls you. And if the subcontractor is also a competitor, its own direct customers may receive priority when schedules become tight. The second entry is the owner-operated route company. This business owns the toilets and the service truck. The owner may handle sales, deliveries, and difficult stops while one employee runs the recurring route. This is the model we will calculate. It requires enough placed units to spread the truck, yard, insurance, software, and labor across a meaningful revenue base. But it gives you control over service quality, scheduling, and the customer relationship. The third entry is the route acquisition. Instead of buying empty toilets and searching for customers, you purchase a small operator, a portfolio of rental contracts, or a dense group of placed units. The purchase price is higher because you are not only buying plastic, you are buying locations. 100 clean toilets sitting behind a warehouse are inventory. 100 rented toilets spread randomly across a state are activity. 100 rented toilets concentrated around several construction corridors are a network. That difference explains why the customer list and service map can be more valuable than the equipment. These are not simply three sizes of the same business. The outsourced operator sells rental access while relying on somebody else's service system. The owner-operated company sells and fulfills the recurring service. The acquisition buyer purchases an existing network and tries not to destroy its density. A current operator can begin with 10 units and reinvest cash. There is nothing magical about buying 100 on the first day, but for this episode, we deliberately choose the harder middle model. 100 toilets, one truck, one yard, and an owner who drives the route personally while the customer base is still forming. The full-time route employee comes later, after recurring placements are high enough to support the payroll. The owner's full market salary also appears only in the stabilized year model, not in the first 6 months. That distinction matters. A startup cannot claim it has 6 months of runway while quietly assuming 2 full salaries from the first day. If this staged, owner-operated company cannot make the numbers work, buying more plastic will not rescue it. The first visible purchase is the toilet fleet. And the first decision is used versus new. Used units can be surprisingly difficult to buy in consistent, rentable condition. A retiring operator may sell a group. A larger company may refresh its fleet. Some units need only cleaning, a new door spring, a repaired roof, or replacement hardware. Others have reached the point where cheap plastic becomes expensive labor. One current operator's startup breakdown places a rentable used construction unit around $300 to $400 and a new assembled delivered standard unit around $800. Those are operator estimates, not universal market prices. Freight, model, color, assembly, quantity, and location can change the number, but the relationship is useful. A new unit may cost roughly twice as much as a used construction unit. So our modeled fleet buys 50 used standard units at an average of $350. That is $17,500. Then it buys 40 new standard units at the operator's approximate $800 benchmark. That is $32,000. The remaining 10 toilets are new accessible units. They cost more than standard units, so we model them at a blended $15,000. Then we add 6 hand washing stations, freight, replacement parts, decals, and initial repairs. The complete event-capable fleet and accessory package is modeled at approximately $72,000. That is already more than the all-standard fleet in the competitor's lean startup calculation. Now separate the inventory. The cleanest, new, standard, and accessible units go to weddings, festivals, corporate events, and other public-facing rentals. The used standard units go to construction and industrial sites where cosmetic perfection matters less than reliable weekly service. That does not mean construction customers receive unsanitary equipment. OSHA requires toilet facilities to be provided and maintained in sanitary condition. A scratched panel can still be serviceable. A filthy or broken toilet is not. Standardizing the fleet also matters. If doors, latches, roofs, tanks, and hardware are interchangeable, you need fewer spare parts and less technician knowledge. A mixed collection of unrelated bargain units can save money at purchase and create a permanent maintenance puzzle. Then comes utilization. The owner sees 100 units. The business may have only 70 rented units. The other 30 still consume yard space, cleaning time, repair money, and capital. Some idle inventory is necessary. You need units for new orders, emergency replacements, and event peaks. Too much idle inventory means you financed plastic that does not produce invoices. This creates 3 different values for the same object. A toilet in the yard is inventory. A toilet rented alone 40 miles away is revenue with questionable margin. A toilet placed beside 9 of your other units is a network asset. The goal is not to own the most toilets. It is to keep enough of them rented in places your truck can reach efficiently. And that is why the next purchase matters more than the first 100 boxes combined. Our 100 toilet fleet and event accessories are modeled at approximately $72,000. A new service truck can cost more than twice that amount. Current 2026 dealer listings show new portable restroom trucks with various chassis and tank configurations priced from roughly $118,000 to more than $158,000 before taxes and options. The larger truck may carry more waste, more fresh water, more supplies, and, in some configurations, several toilets for delivery. But a new operator does not automatically need the largest truck available. The thematic competitor's practical recommendation is different. Buy a used flatbed with a liftgate. Install a new aluminum slide-in tank across the front of the bed. Keep enough deck space behind it to carry several toilets. That truck can service units, deliver units, and tow a trailer. It sacrifices some capacity compared with a large, dedicated route truck. It gains flexibility. Our model budgets $40,000 for a used flatbed, $20,000 for a new slide-in tank with approximately 400 gallons of waste capacity and 200 gallons of freshwater capacity. Then another $10,000 for mounting, hoses, pump equipment, fittings, liftgate preparation, safety equipment, and branding. The first truck can cost almost as much as the entire fleet. Modeled first truck, $70,000, almost as much as the entire toilet fleet and accessory package. The truck's tank capacity becomes a production limit. Suppose the driver can reach 50 toilets in one day. That does not mean the truck can always service 50. Usage varies. A lightly used construction unit may add little volume. A crowded event unit can fill much faster. The driver may need to leave the route, unload at the approved receiving facility, and return. Now the disposal location determines how many stops fit into the shift. The truck is also a single point of failure. If one toilet breaks, you replace one toilet. If the only vacuum truck breaks, every rented toilet keeps moving toward its next promised service date while the company's productive capacity becomes zero. You need maintenance reserves. Critical spare parts. A rental or reciprocal service agreement arranged before the breakdown. And enough customer communication to survive a delay without pretending nothing happened. Later, our stabilized operating model will include a specific line for temporary event labor, overflow subcontracting, and backup service. Redundancy is not free. It is one of the costs of promising weekly service with only one primary truck. The truck does not generate rent while parked, but without it, the rented assets eventually stop producing acceptable service. That is why the truck is not merely equipment. It is the operating system connecting every invoice to the work required to keep it. Now we can build the complete startup budget. One current operator's public 2026 breakdown lands near $175,000 for a mixed 100-unit fleet, a used truck with a slide-in system, miscellaneous equipment, and roughly 6 months of lean cash. That is the useful headline. Our company is slightly more expensive because we are not pretending every order can be served with 100 identical standard toilets. We added 10 accessible units. We added hand washing stations. We also selected a state where licensing, vehicle registration, and an operator in charge have to be built into the launch. Our modeled startup budget is therefore $72,000 for the 100 toilet fleet, 6 hand washing stations, freight, and initial repairs. $70,000 for the used flatbed, slide-in vacuum system, and installation. $8,000 for wash equipment, hoses, tools, safety equipment, supplies, and critical spare parts. $15,000 for yard deposits, commercial insurance deposits, licensing, vehicle registration, software, and setup. And $30,000 of lean working capital. Total modeled startup requirement, $195,000. The $30,000 reserve needs an important label. It is not 6 months of the mature company's complete cost structure. It does not include a $62,000 owner salary and a full-time employee from day one. It is 6 months of lean fixed overhead while the owner operates the truck, performs deliveries, handles sales, and takes only limited draws when cash permits. The route employee is hired after the company reaches roughly 55 recurring long-term units. The owner's market salary appears only when we calculate the stabilized year. Without that staging, the runway claim would be fiction. Before the first service, our Wisconsin company also assumes the owner has completed the required master operator certification and has been designated as the operator in charge. The business license is active. The service vehicle has been inspected and registered. When the employee is later hired, we model that person as a portable restroom servicing assistant working under the owner's direction and limited to portable restroom work. The owner invests $110,000. The remaining $85,000 is financed over 7 years at 8.5%. Modeled annual debt service is approximately $16,200. That payment remains due in January when events are slow. It remains due when construction weakens. It remains due when the pump fails. The owner now has equipment, legal operating capacity, and a cash reserve. The company still has no profitable route. That is the difference between startup cost and business value. You can spend $195,000 in a few weeks. Creating 100 profitable service obligations can take much longer. There is also a cash timing problem. A new placement consumes a clean unit, delivery labor, fuel, and working capital immediately. The first full 4-week rental payment may arrive later. A commercial customer may pay on 30-day terms. A disputed invoice can take longer. The company can look profitable in an annual model and still run out of cash during growth. So the owner has to watch accounts receivable and the route map at the same time. The next question is not whether people need toilets. They do. The question is what the customer is actually paying this company to guarantee. A construction manager does not want to own portable toilets. An event organizer does not want a sanitation fleet after the festival ends. The customer is paying you to create temporary sanitation where permanent infrastructure does not exist. That bundle contains several services: delivery, placement, rental access, scheduled pumping, cleaning, restocking, waste transport, disposal, emergency response, and removal. The box is only the container through which those services are delivered. Construction demand has an important regulatory anchor. OSHA's construction sanitation table requires at least 1 toilet facility for 20 employees or fewer. Larger crews require additional facilities, according to the table. That does not guarantee your company a contract. It does mean many job sites cannot simply decide to operate indefinitely without sanitation. The demand is attached to the existence of the workforce. But public events create a different promise. The units have to arrive during a narrow setup window. They need to look clean. The quantity has to match expected attendance and event conditions. Access units need appropriate placement and access where the rules and event requirements apply. The 2010 ADA standards include a specific exception for portable toilets used exclusively by construction personnel on a construction site. Those units are not treated identically to clusters serving the public. For clusters of portable single-user units that fall under the 2010 ADA standards, the specific exception says no more than 5% of the units at each cluster are required to comply with the accessible toilet provision. When a percentage calculation produces a fraction, the standards require the next greater whole number of elements. So, a public cluster cannot simply ignore accessibility because 5% is less than one unit. The precise obligation still depends on the venue, responsible entity, contract, and applicable state or local rules. The business cannot use one accessibility sentence for every customer. This is another reason the rental price alone reveals little. A standard construction unit with predictable weekly service is one product. A public festival deployment with accessible units, hand-washing stations, weekend service and immediate retrieval is another. A deluxe restroom trailer with water, power, and climate control is another business again. The customer sees temporary toilets. The owner sees different service promises drawing from the same fleet, truck, labor, and disposal capacity. Your price list has to recognize those differences. Placement is part of the product as well. The customer may choose the most convenient location for workers or guests. Your driver needs stable ground, safe access, and enough room for delivery and future service. A toilet placed beautifully against a wall may become impossible to pump. A unit placed on a slope may become a damage claim after one storm. The sale is not complete when the customer points to a location. The company has to approve a location that works for the user, the delivery equipment, and every recurring service visit that follows. That small site decision can determine the cost of the order for months. Otherwise, the highest revenue order can become the order that disrupts the entire company. The toilet earns revenue while it sits still. The company earns profit only if the truck can service it efficiently. A normal weekly stop includes more than pumping. The driver reaches the location, finds the unit, checks for damage, opens it, pumps the tank, cleans the interior, recharges the holding tank, restocks toilet paper and sanitizer, records the service, secures the door, reports any site problem, then moves to the next unit. The service itself may be fast. Everything around it is variable. Traffic, locked gates, mud, snow, a forklift blocking, access, a unit moved behind a building, a hose that cannot reach, a customer who added workers without adding capacity, a toilet that is no longer standing upright. Now compare two routes. Route A has 40 toilets across 32 locations. The driver spends most of the day between stops. Route B has 35 toilets across 12 locations. Several construction projects contain 4 or 5 units each. Route A has more rented assets. Route B can produce more contribution per labor hour. This leads to the central equation of the company. Revenue is attached to units. Profit is attached to routes. Let us test one construction unit. Our modeled customer pays $220 every 4 weeks, including standard weekly service. Allocate 4 service visits. Labor and payroll burden, $56. Fuel, vehicle cost, and commercial auto allocation, $40. Disposal, chemicals, and paper, $24. Repairs, administration, and replacement reserve, $35. Modeled 4-week operating cost, $155. Modeled contribution before delivery and unusual service, $65. Now place that toilet 45 minutes beyond the last normal stop. The extra labor, fuel, and truck time can erase the $65 contribution. The toilet remains rented. Revenue remains visible. Profit disappears into the windshield. This is why a smart operator creates service zones, delivery minimums, remote area fees, and account-level contribution reports. The customer may be willing to pay the published rental price. That does not make the stop worth accepting. The strongest sales representative is not the person who places the most units. It is the person who places units that improve the route. Density also compounds. Once the truck already enters a construction corridor every Tuesday, the next nearby site can be cheaper to serve than the first. That lets the company quote competitively without accepting a weak margin. The opposite compounds too. One remote customer creates the temptation to accept a second remote customer because the truck is already out there. Soon, the company has built a second territory without enough volume to support a second route. That is how accidental expansion happens. The map grows before the economics do. A disciplined operator should know the incremental cost of the next stop, not merely the average cost of the existing route. The route does not end at the customer. It ends where the truck can legally unload. EPA guidance defines domestic septage to include material removed from portable toilets that receive domestic sewage. The exact treatment, transport, and disposal obligations depend on the state, locality, and receiving facility. Our modeled company operates in Wisconsin because the state makes several responsibilities visible. Wisconsin requires a septage business license for companies performing septage servicing and disposal. Every vehicle used for the work must be inspected and registered before it services, transports, or disposes of septage. Individual servicing septage generally require proper certification. Wisconsin allows an exemption for portable restroom servicing assistants working under the direction of the operator in charge. But those assistants are limited to portable restroom service and cannot land apply septage. That is why our owner is modeled as the certified master operator and operator in charge before the first route begins. The later route employee works as the portable restroom servicing assistant under that supervision. This is not one national licensing template. It is the operating framework for the state we selected. The company still needs an approved receiving relationship. A wastewater treatment plant or other authorized facility may have unloading hours, chemical restrictions, documentation requirements, and fees. Now add that endpoint to the route map. Your yard is point A. The customers are points B through Z. The disposal facility is the final point. A dense cluster of customers can still become inefficient if the full truck has to travel far away, wait in line, unload, and return across traffic. Tank capacity matters because it controls when that detour occurs. A larger truck can extend the route. It also costs more, weighs more, and may be less maneuverable. A smaller slide-in system is cheaper and flexible. It may require more unloading cycles during heavy event work. This is why buying more toilets does not automatically increase throughput. The company can have unit capacity without truck capacity without disposal access without enough driver hours. The bottleneck moves. The receiving facility can also reject a load that contains material outside its acceptance rules. That makes customer education and chemical selection part of disposal risk. A unit contaminated with construction chemicals or prohibited debris is not simply unpleasant. It can interrupt the unloading plan for the entire truck. Wash water creates another operating question. Cleaning the units and truck at the yard may be subject to local drainage, wastewater, and nuisance rules. The owner cannot treat the yard as an empty lot where every liquid disappears into the ground. The disposal relationship should therefore be secured before the fleet is placed, not after the truck fills for the first time. The owner's job is to identify the bottleneck before adding another 100 plastic boxes. Once that disposal loop is secured, the next decision is which customers should fill the route. Events are more visible. Construction is usually more useful. A construction project may keep the same unit for months. The billing repeats. The weekly service repeats. The driver learns the entrance, gate code, and unit location. the contractor begins another project nearby. One customer can create several recurring sites inside the same territory. That repetition is valuable. A one-day event may pay more per unit per day. A construction account can create a stable route that supports labor, debt, and yard expenses through the year. The best construction customer is not necessarily the one with the largest single site. It is the contractor whose future sites continue appearing inside your service area. One general contractor can send you to subdivisions, remodels, and commercial projects. One road contractor can produce moving but recurring demand. One municipality can create seasonal public works and event orders. The sales process should therefore measure account density, not only individual orders. But construction creates concentration risk. If one builder controls 20% of your units and its project pipeline stops, your utilization falls quickly. Reuters reported that United Site Services entered Chapter 11 in December 2025 after high debt became unsustainable amid inflation and a downturn in residential housing construction. Construction represented a major customer area, while interest, fuel, and labor became more expensive. A small operator faces the same economic forces without the same balance sheet. The lesson is not to avoid construction. It is to avoid confusing recurring demand with permanent demand. Your route should contain several contractors, several project types, and enough event or municipal work that one customer cannot empty the yard. Construction is our base. Diversification protects the base. The sales calendar matters too. A contractor may call when the project is already beginning and expect delivery immediately. But the relationship that produces repeat work was often built months earlier through vendor registration, estimates, insurance certificates, and reliable performance on a smaller site. The owner should track future starts, expected project endings, and the number of units likely to return to the yard in the same month. A route can look full today, while several projects are approaching completion together. That is why utilization should be forecast, not merely counted. The company is always selling the next placement before the current placement ends. Southern Wisconsin also makes seasonality visible. Outdoor events concentrate in warmer months. Snow, ice, and winter road conditions can reduce route speed even when recurring construction units remain in service. Several projects may pause or complete near the same time. That means the summer event spike cannot be treated as 12-month recurring revenue, and the winter route cannot be modeled with summer drive times. The company needs enough recurring construction and municipal work to carry the fixed costs through the slower event season. Now imagine a weekend public event ordering 14 standard units, 1 accessible unit, and 2 hand-washing stations. That order fits inside the 22 toilets left outside our average long-term rental base. The invoice looks excellent. Suppose the total order reaches $3,500 after delivery, pickup, and the planned service level. That revenue may equal several months of contribution from one isolated construction unit. But the event compresses the work. Every unit has to be clean at the same time, loaded at the same time, delivered during the organizer's access window, placed according to the site plan, potentially serviced while the event is operating, then removed quickly after thousands of guests leave. Your normal route still exists. Construction customers do not pause because the festival begins Friday, so you add temporary labor, rent a trailer, run overtime, or subcontract overflow. The event may also return units covered in mud, stickers, damage, and material that should never enter the vacuum system. Each unit has to be deep cleaned before the next rental. This is why event pricing should not be based only on the number of toilets and days. It should include the deployment wave, delivery window, retrieval window, distance, ground conditions, expected attendance, service frequency, accessible placement, hand washing, night or weekend labor, and the opportunity cost of tying up inventory during a busy date. A wedding customer expects visual quality. A large festival expects resilience. A contractor expects consistent weekly service. Those promises cannot share one generic price. Events can create excellent revenue. They can also hide their cost until the Monday retrieval schedule collides with the construction route. The owner who prices the plastic undercharges. The owner who prices the disruption has a chance to earn a margin. Event forecasting is also less forgiving than construction forecasting. If attendance exceeds the organizer's estimate, usage can overwhelm the planned service level. If attendance is lower, your units still had to be delivered and collected. Rain can turn a field into a recovery problem. A last-minute layout change can add hours of repositioning. The contract should define who approves quantities, what additional service costs, and what happens when the site becomes inaccessible. The operator is not responsible for predicting the crowd better than the organizer. But the operator is responsible for translating the organizer's forecast into a sanitation plan and documenting the assumptions behind it. If a larger event wants more than the owned fleet can spare, the company has only 3 honest choices. Decline the order. Rent or subcontract overflow and price that cost explicitly. Or remove long-term units from paying customers, which is not a real option. Our financial model assumes larger events use subcontracted overflow only when the remaining margin justifies the operational risk, and every deployment plan assumes the site will remain accessible and the units will stay where you placed them. That assumption fails more often than the plastic does. Portable toilets are simple. Customers make them complicated. A contractor moves one with a forklift and places it where the service hose cannot reach. An event organizer creates a beautiful row of units but leaves no service lane. A homeowner asks for backyard placement through a narrow gate. A unit is locked behind a fence on the scheduled day. A toilet is filled with bottles, clothing, diapers, tools, concrete residue, or chemicals. A vandal tips it over. A vehicle hits it. The customer assumes the weekly rental price includes every possible recovery. It does not. Your contract needs clear rules. Placement requirements, access requirements, relocation charges, emergency service charges, damage responsibility, prohibited material, weather and ground condition limitations, and permission to move or refuse service when the unit cannot be reached safely. Then, document everything. Photograph the unit at delivery. Record the exact location. Log each service. Photograph damage. Record who requested a move. Use route. Software that shows the driver where the unit should be and what happened at the previous visit. The toilet is a low-technology object. The evidence system should not be low technology. This protects the customer as well. A time-stamped service record can show that the company performed the promised visit. A photo can show whether a gate was locked. A damage record prevents the next customer from inheriting an unresolved problem. Operational discipline becomes especially important as the owner stops visiting every site personally. At 10 units, memory can run the company. At 100 units, memory begins failing. At 1,000 units, memory becomes a liability. The software should also force exceptions into categories: no access, unit moved, damage, overuse, contamination, emergency service, customer cancellation. Those categories reveal patterns that stories do not. If one site produces repeated no-access visits, the account needs a placement or contract correction. If one event planner repeatedly changes layouts, the next quote should include that labor. If one route technician reports unusual fill levels, the customer may need more capacity or more frequent service. Scale requires the route, contract, and condition of every unit to exist outside the owner's head. At 10 units, the owner can remember nearly every customer. At 100 units, the company needs route software, service records, and a real exception system. At thousands of units, it needs corporate infrastructure, regional management, and capital. And this is where the small company question becomes a large company warning. The portable sanitation business can scale very far. United Site Services entered its 2025 bankruptcy with approximately 350,000 portable restrooms, 3,000 employees, and more than 70,000 customers, according to Reuters. Its customers included construction projects, major events, and government-related work. This was not a tiny operator that failed to find demand. It was the largest national provider in the United States. The problem was the capital structure. Reuters reported that the Chapter 11 plan aimed to eliminate $2.4 billion of debt and transfer control to lenders. The company said expansion and acquisitions had been funded with debt that became unsustainable as inflation rose, residential construction weakened, and interest, labor, and fuel became more expensive. The existing private equity ownership was expected to be wiped out. Then the business continued. United Site Services announced on March 5, 2026, that it had implemented its confirmed reorganization plan and completed a financial recapitalization. That distinction matters. The operating network had value. The old equity and debt structure did not survive. This is the large company version of the same mistake a one-truck operator can make. Buy more units because the route looks busy. Buy another truck before the existing truck is efficient. Acquire a competitor because revenue grows immediately. Finance the expansion with debt whose payment assumes construction remains strong and costs remain stable. The company can become operationally larger and financially weaker at the same time. The lesson from United Site Services is not that portable toilets are a bad business. It is that route density cannot repair unlimited leverage. A company may own hundreds of thousands of revenue-producing assets and still lose the ownership layer if the debt attached to them is wrong. For our small operator, the practical rule is simple. Do not buy the second truck because the first truck feels busy. First, measure whether it is busy with profitable service. The obvious way to grow is to buy more toilets. That is not the first scalable asset. The first is route density. Adding 10 units to existing sites may create more value than adding 30 units at the edge of the territory. The second is customer concentration without customer dependence. A contractor that places several units nearby improves the route. A contractor that controls half the fleet threatens the company. The third is service capacity. The owner should know units serviced per route hour, drive time versus service time, gallons collected per route, distance to disposal, missed stops, emergency calls, and truck downtime. The fourth is disposal access. A good receiving relationship, useful unloading hours, and predictable fees support the entire network. The fifth is software and proof. The company needs to know where every unit is, which customer pays for it, when it was last serviced, what condition it is in, and when the contract ends. The sixth is adjacent products that fit the route: hand washing stations, holding tanks, fresh water systems, temporary fencing, additional weekly service. These can increase revenue per stop without requiring an entirely new customer acquisition system. The seventh is acquisition. Buying a competitor can add units and contracts quickly, but the real question is whether the acquired route overlaps your own. A distant acquisition can add revenue and destroy density. Luxury restroom trailers may appear to be the natural next step. They can command higher prices. They also require towing, power, water, setup knowledge, detailed cleaning, and hospitality-level presentation. They are not simply expensive portable toilets. The best expansion usually follows the network you already have. Add products the existing truck, customer, and route can support. This also closes the 3 entry paths from the beginning. Outsourcing service is the cheapest way to test a small fleet, but it sacrifices control. Owning the truck makes sense when enough recurring stops exist to support the system. Buying an existing operator makes sense only when the acquired route adds density rather than a distant second territory. The correct path depends on which bottleneck you are prepared to own. Then add a second truck only when the first efficient route consistently exceeds capacity, or when the company consciously pays for redundancy. Growth should remove a bottleneck. It should not create a new monthly payment in search of a purpose. The second truck decision makes this visible. If the first truck is efficient and routinely runs out of service capacity, a second truck can unlock more rented units and protect the company from breakdowns. If the first truck is busy because it spends hours driving between weak accounts, the second truck only duplicates the inefficiency. Before buying it, the owner should model the exact units, routes, and revenue that will move on to the new vehicle. Redundancy has value, but it should be identified honestly as insurance rather than disguised as growth. The difference is whether the new payment follows proven demand or arrives first and forces the sales team to chase it. Now, let us calculate the corrected 100 toilet company. These are original illustrative assumptions. They are not industry averages, public company results, rental quotes, audited forecasts, or earnings promises. The company requires $195,000 to open. The owner invests $110,000. $85,000 is financed over 7 years at 8.5%. Modeled annual debt service is approximately $16,200. This is not the first 6 months. This is the stabilized year after the owner has built the route, hired 1 full-time employee, and begun paying a $62,000 market salary to the owner. The company averages 78 toilets on long-term rental. That leaves an average of 22 toilets available for new placements, emergency replacements, and event rotation. The modeled 4-week long-term rate is $220, including standard weekly service. There are 13 4-week billing cycles in a 52-week year. Long-term rental revenue is 78 multiplied by $220 multiplied by 13. $223,080. Now build the event revenue from actual orders instead of inserting one unexplained total. 20 small private or community events at an average invoice of $1,100 produce $22,000. 8 medium public events at an average invoice of $3,500 produce $28,000. 4 larger events produce $6,000 each in gross company revenue, with overflow equipment subcontracted only when the price covers it. That produces another $24,000. Modeled annual event revenue, $74,000. Then build the ancillary revenue. 60 construction placements, removals, or turnovers at an average retained charge of $250 produce $15,000. 180 additional service, relocation, or emergency visits at an average of $95 produce $17,100. Repeated hand-washing station and accessory rentals produce $17,900. Modeled ancillary revenue, $50,000. Total modeled annual revenue, $347,080. Now the stabilized operating cash costs. $62,000 for the owner's market salary. $58,000 for 1 full-time route employee and payroll burden. $52,000 for fuel, commercial auto coverage, truck maintenance, and repairs. $32,000 for disposal, chemicals, toilet paper, and cleaning supplies. $24,000 for the yard, utilities, and wash operations. $20,000 for unit repair and replacement reserves, $18,000 for general insurance, software, phones, and administration, $20,000 for temporary event labor, overflow subcontracting, and backup service when the primary truck is unavailable, and $12,000 for marketing, bad debt, and miscellaneous operating costs. Total modeled operating cash cost, $298,000. Modeled operating cash profit before debt service and tax, $49,080. After approximately $16,200 of debt service, about $32,900 of modeled pre-tax cash profit. The owner has already received a $62,000 market salary inside the cost structure. On $110,000 of modeled equity, the remaining pre-tax cash return is approximately 30%, positive, but dependent on route quality. Now, keep the same 100 toilets, keep the same pricing, keep the same $347,080 of revenue, and spread the customers across a much wider territory. The company needs more overtime and part-time route help. Fuel and maintenance rise. The truck reaches disposal at worse points in the day. Backup capacity is used more often. Add $50,000 of annual route-related cost. Modeled operating cash cost becomes $348,000. The company now loses about $900 before debt service. After debt service, the modeled pre-tax cash loss is approximately $17,100. The toilets remained rented. The map destroyed the margin. Now restore the efficient geography. Construction slows. Competitors discount. Only 65 toilets average long-term rental. The average 4-week rate falls to $195. Long-term rental revenue becomes $164,775. Event revenue falls to $55,000. Ancillary revenue falls to $40,000. Total modeled revenue, $259,775. Some variable costs decline. There are fewer route miles, fewer supplies, and fewer event labor hours. But the truck, yard, insurance, software, owner salary, employee, and debt do not fall in proportion. Modeled operating cash cost falls only to $272,000. The operating loss before debt service is approximately $12,200. After debt service, the modeled pre-tax cash loss is approximately $28,400. This is the answer to the 100-unit question. 100 toilets do not guarantee a viable company. They provide enough physical inventory to build one. The business works only when enough units are rented at sustainable prices, placed close enough together, serviced by a reliable truck, and supported by disposal access. The 100-unit threshold is not the business. It is the amount of inventory that gives the owner a chance to build the route. A portable toilet company looks like an equipment rental business because the equipment is visible. A row of blue boxes, a fenced yard, a vacuum truck. The real business is less visible. A construction manager who trusts Tuesday service. An event planner who needs every unit placed before the gates open. A driver who knows where the hose can reach. A disposal facility that accepts the load before closing. A route map that turns one truck into enough weekly service to support payroll. And a cash reserve that keeps the promise alive when the truck fails. The cheapest entry may be 10 units with outsourced service. The most controllable entry may be 100 toilets and your own truck. The fastest entry into density may be buying an existing route. But none of those paths is passive. Every rented toilet becomes a recurring promise. Every promise becomes a service stop. Every stop becomes part of a route. and every route has to end at legal disposal. Do that reliably, and one simple plastic box can earn rent for years. Do it across a dense network, and the company can become a durable local business. Do it with scattered customers, weak pricing, no backup capacity or too much debt, and more toilets simply create more places to lose money. So if you decide to own a portable toilet company, remember what you are actually buying. The toilet creates the invoice. The truck delivers the service. The disposal point closes the loop. The route creates the margin. And density is the moat.